another episode of SubSecond. This is Hema, the head of enterprise at Team Northwest. And joining us today is definitely by far the most special guest of SubSecond. Please welcome Mr. Shubham. How are you doing today? And thank you so much for joining.
I'm doing good. Just in general, just excited for what's coming up next. With the kind of things that I'm onto, and excited to help people and promote the whole idea of and notion of motorsports around in India, and just doing a lot of webinars, helping people out, showing people the pathway to get into motorsports.
That's absolutely great. So just brief us a little about what your role is in Red Bull Racing.
So I used to work with Red Bull Racing for 2021 and 2022 championship, and I worked there for the 2021 championship in race operations and 2022 as an aero dev. So it was an absolutely exciting time in which we basically, these 2 seasons were pretty much the standout seasons for a while. So yeah, I mean, I don't work there yet. I don't work there as of today, but I used to work there for the last 2 years, and it's been an absolutely fantastic time.
That's great. I mean, new days, new opportunities, and I'm pretty sure you're on to much, much better opportunities now. But how was your experience working back there?
Well, the experience was absolutely intense, I would say. It was, I used to describe it to my mother, like especially those 2 years, where it got a bit edgy with the 2021 season. At least the 2021 season was like a meteorite is going to come hit the earth, and you have to find a solution today. You know, like you got to
Yeah.
save the earth kind of a vibes. So it was a lot of intense work, on weekends as well. And you were of course developing a car for a entirely new season, new regulation. So nobody knew actually what would work and what would not work. So the amount of designs that you tried was, there were many more designs because people did not have a baseline point or a data point as to what worked and what didn't work. So everybody was trying stuff and everybody was figuring stuff out. So it was an intense place to work with, but Red Bull, being Red Bull, also gives you a good ecosystem to work that intensively. Like they make sure that, the entire workplace or the work culture is not just work intensive, but also a bit of fun, play. People are flexible to design their work schedules to their requirements, to their family requirements, to their personal requirements. So you could always play around with it if you were a bit smart enough to manage your day. So, but yeah, it required some time management, some mind space management to be able to be productive.
Right. I can understand because of course the pressure must have been huge with a time span and then also the new regulation. So it makes sense. But as for your role in Red Bull Racing, what did it entail?
So I used to work specifically on the front car group,
Mm-hmm.
which basically takes care of everything from the nose of the car all the way till let's say the driver's cockpit. So you're talking about the front wing brake ducts. You're talking about the entire nose design, nose structure design, and you're talking about that complex interaction between the front wing and the tire.
Mm-hmm.
So primarily, I worked on developing ideas for the front wing, for the front brake ducts, and all the furniture that you see around the tire. Um, but yeah, that was my main role, development wise. But on the weekends, on race weekends, we would also do race support, where basically we're listening to drivers, we're listening to other people's strategy, we're keeping an eye on what's happening on track and feeding information continuously and meticulously to our strategy team so that they can respond, quickly. Because it's all about the small seconds, isn't it, when it comes to F1?
Yes. I mean, also talking about small seconds as much as the hundredth of a second matter in F1. Similarly, it is as in F1 in schools. So I'm pretty sure you have heard about F1 in schools as well. So what was your first impression when you heard about this miniature version competition F1 in schools?
My first reaction was, why wasn't this available when I was a kid? That was my first reaction, to be honest. So, like, why wasn't this there back then? And obviously, F1 in schools is a very, very nice platform because if you do well, you get to see people whom you as a kid would only dream. Like as a kid, I never thought there is a pathway for me to go and see like the engineers or the drivers of working in F1 who will end up showing up in some kind of finales or in one of these race weekends, so you do get your finals. So yeah, if I had a pathway like that, I would kind of force my parents to put me in a good school. That's because something like this never existed. I just settled for anything and everything I went into, so yeah, back when I heard about the competition and when I got to know about the competition, I felt like this is a great way to engross students into the sport, into the technology, into the nitty gritties of the entire thing that is required to put up a show in F1. When it comes to team management, comes to aerodynamics, 3D printing, working as a team, most importantly, right? So I feel like students learn this in a fun way, which is not usually the case. Like there are science projects that kids do of your age, but uh, I think sport and competition always adds a sense of thrill. So that way, I thought it was a very nice way to introduce the concept of F1 and how close the competition is, how important the technology is at a very young age. So yeah, I was absolutely when since I heard about this, I've been a big supporter, and I've tried to understand more about this so that I could try and understand how I could help, because obviously my skill set is a bit more detailed
Mm-hmm.
than what is required in F1 in schools. But hey, I think a lot of people can still, um, you know, make their cars faster in a way. So I was just talking to some other teams, as I was saying earlier, as to what the competition is and how they can make their car faster. Because I think what kids, um, or what students, young students, um, always think about winning the competition, but don't think about how to improve the car. It's like of course, if you improve the car, you win the competition, but people don't think about how to add improvement gains on the car. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what I found was lacking when I was speaking to the team that I was speaking, because they had no way of determining whether their previous year's car was faster than this year's car until unless they made it and it ran,
Right, right.
right? So I was like, okay, how do you determine that before it runs? Is what the real fun is all about. Of course, you make something and it gives you a faster time. So you've done your job well. But what if you've 3D printed a car and it's not fundamentally faster than last year's car? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this competition. I'm looking forward to being part of it in some capacity if I could promote it.
Right. I mean, it makes complete sense because, of course, F1 might be way, 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 way detailed, but the basics just branch out from the same thing that you have a limited period of time, you have changed regulations each and every year, and you're also going against these fellow competitors that you want to beat in any way, shape, or form, whether it's by a 0.001 second, that also makes a difference. So, of course, F1 in schools definitely is a baseline. But also, do you think F1 in schools is a baseline for any career pathway for in a student life?
Um, Absolutely. Here's the thing, right? There are qualities that you learn in your school that are more important than just technical qualities. Like I think schools, the whole idea of F1 in schools is not just to develop a technical skill set. Of course, that rapid prototyping skill set that you learn is invaluable. That skill set in which you have to kind of create the lightest paint to paint the car gives you already an idea of chemical composition of a lot of paints, right? That idea of, as I was saying, if you guys are able to create something which allows you to determine, like simple aerodynamics, which allows you to determine whether your last year's model versus your this year's model on paper, do you have more downforce or drag, right? So, for example, if I did a simulation and it is faster or slower, now a lot of people would say, bro, they are just kids. How do you expect them to do CFD, right? And I would say, yes, I don't expect them to do advanced CFD, but there are platforms right now online where you can just chuck the geometry and it gives you a decent output, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all you have to do is learn like simple basics, which allows you to learn, what numbers you should read to try and gauge an understanding of whether your car is faster than last year's car. Now, this whole exercise gives you an idea. It doesn't need to be perfect or even correct, but the very fact that you're going through this loop of creating, designing, and simulating at such an early age lays down the entire foundation for what's next. Like, imagine for me, the biggest idea would be if you take this, run it through simulation software, and that simulation software says, great, your car is really fast. Now you build this car, and this car is not as fast, right? Now you immediately realize at such a young age that simulation is just a simulation,
Right.
right?
Mm.
So so you trust it very blindly. A lot of us, what happens is we realize this after we do our bachelor's, because you don't really create something that validates anything.
Mhm.
So at such a young age, when you realize simulation is just simulation and it has no value until unless it's accurate simulation, you have a little bit of respect for what you are doing in your own right. You know that it's not a one day quick dirty job. It's like it needs time, it needs energy, it needs the right people, it needs the right skill set. So I think you just start having appreciation for a lot of different skill sets that are required to come together to make a team work well. And I pretty much I have played sports my entire school life. Right, like until like 16, I was just a sports person until I said, okay, let's start studying. But so I've kind of inculcated this team working qualities and like the ability to um lift your teammates up. But when I was in bachelor's first year, that's when the first time I worked on a group project of aero modeling, where we would build like aero models, like model scale airplanes, and go around for competitions around India. It was the closest thing that I could do, which is something competitive, something that we could quickly do without big expenses. And I realized that I never had, because I became the team captain in the second year, and I realized what a different skill set that was, to be able to get like differently skilled people who are good in their own domains and put them together and create something beautiful out of it. It's not a technical skill set, it is just a skill set of managing talent. That's what I call it, managing talent, you know. So I think you guys get a feel of it very young on, when you do this. And then so I think it's a great platform for anything and everything, just even just for generally living life, right? When you
Mhm.
learn how to speak to people in their own language, in a way that they understand you, gives you a platform to speak maybe to your parents, um, in a way that they understand you. So yeah, I just think it's a great platform for kids to upskill themselves in technical skills and personality wise.
Completely,
Definitely.
completely agreed.
We completely agree because when we joined this competition, we were just regular school students, but now like we've got like the skills and we know how to do like simulations on like a much more smaller scale. But yes, we have learned that. Do you think Formula One, like as a sport, has started like noticing F1 in schools and is giving more attention to F1 in school students?
Oh, 100%. I think if the fact that they're finishing F1 in schools on a race finale or on a race weekend, which is very big, inviting students to meet everybody. I mean, I've seen this on TV basically, right? So I think it's not just, especially in the last couple of years, I think it's not a program for the name of it. I think it's something that F1 is definitely committed to. I mean, the very fact that, correct me if I'm wrong, is that they 3D print your car. You have to just send them the model, they print it and they send it. That's what I was told. Um, the very fact that they're doing this for other universities or even your university tells you that they want to empower, because what is the biggest limitation in this entire process? A is the student, B is the ability to 3D print the car.
Mm. Right.
Yeah.
And third is the money. The students sort out the money and the students themselves. What remains is the problem of 3D printing, which, let's say, not a lot of kids have the skill set of your age to do it at that point. So I really like the idea where they say, send us the design, we'll print the car, and we'll send it back to you. But the problem with this is that obviously you can print only certain specific cars or one car that they send you, right? So part of what I want to do in F1 in schools is basically change that. Like, can we can we go to schools and teach them how to 3D print so that they can prototype multiple designs instead of one, right?
Mhm.
Now that would change something drastically because now you can have more people participating, you can test more designs, you can have a bit more fun with it, and you can go a little bit more higher boozer with the ideas, in a way. So I feel F1 in school, F1 is definitely putting a very conscious effort in F1 in schools. I think it's well funded. I think the event is well organized, and there are good people looking after it. Um, so yeah, I think F1 is very very conscious about this.
I completely agree. I mean, like, we get like the model blocks actually from F1, and then like we
Mhm.
CNC it over here. So like the machines that F1 have placed in like Jasper and circuit and all, like that's definitely very helpful. Um, do you think F1 in school is like the best way to get started in like the world of motorsport for now? Is it like the entryway?
I mean, F1 in school is not going to be an entry into F1. F1 in school is this is definitely going to be an entry or an exposure to F1. That's what I believe because when you go there, you'll end up meeting engineers. You'll end up meeting the people who you want to be, right? And I think once you have that, you have a target, an aim. Like I will meet somebody that I want to be like. I will go on his LinkedIn profile and I will see what he's done.
Yeah.
Right? So, so I feel like it's the best exposure platform to F1 that's there. But yeah, I mean, for example, if I am an engineer, right, and I see, and I see your profile having done F1 in schools. Now, only thing I will take away from that is A, you're passionate about the sports, and B, you're ready to work towards it. Like, I will not determine you skilled because, again, as I said, that's a different skill set to grow, right? So what I will get from that profile, say for example, tomorrow you finish this and then you do your college and then you do your bachelor's in engineering and you do your master's. When I see your profile, I would know that this guy's been involved since a very early age into the sport. Like
Mhm.
it runs in him. And that is a big factor. Don't get me wrong. It's not something to be underestimated with because the honest reality is people in F1 are not just looking for the smartest people. People in F1 are looking for the smartest people who have a passion for motorsports. There are two sides of the coin, and I think a lot of people only fall on either side. A lot of people are saying, I'm passionate, I'm passionate. Great. What have you done with that passion? Show me. Right? What are the projects that you've done? How have you tried to involve yourself in the sport? How have you gone above and beyond to try and achieve something in that sport? You know, and a lot of and then some people who are just smart, right? Just like crazy smart in their subject. And F1 wants them, but F1 teams know that they will not last there for too long because the environment is very demanding. These smart people can probably earn twice the money and work half the number of hours by working somewhere else.
Yeah.
Not even a joke.
Mhm.
Not even joking, right? So, so it's an environment where nobody pushes you. You push yourself to work 50, 60 hours a week instead of 40 hours a week, right? So
Mhm.
it's not a 8 to 5 job. So So normally teams tend to look for people who are smart but have a passion for motorsports. Like they know this kid, you don't have to tell this kid to stay back to finish the work. He will stay by himself because he wants to do it. And that is literally what used to happen at Red Bull. Literally. Like imagine the head of aerodynamics at Red Bull would come in at 7:30 or 7 sometimes and would leave at 7. So if the head of aerodynamics is working 12 hours, pretty much, imagine what example he's setting to the other people.
A great example. Yeah, yeah. Makes complete sense because I also feel like motorsports, as you said, is really demanding. And for you to last in that job and work that much, you would have to put in a lot of yourself into the competition and make sure that your team does well. So I feel like everyone has that winning competition passion in them.
Yeah, big reason why I decided not to continue was simply because I was a bit spoiled because I landed up being at the top team and winning a championship with them immediately the moment I entered the sport. So I got a bit spoiled, I have to say. But those 2 year, but those two championship kind of made me realize how my life would look after 5 years and where I would be after 5 years, right? And I had to make a call whether that is something that I wanted or did I want something else to do with my life. And it was a hard call. I made the call in February this year because I had two opportunities. And yeah, I decided to go the other way because I felt that it aligned more towards how and what I see myself as going forwards. And also, big factor for me was the flexibility because F1 offers no flexibility in their job, right? So it's like you have 30 days of holidays, out of which summer shutdown takes pretty much 15, right? So you have 15 days of holidays left that you can take in the entire year. And then that's like 2 weeks of vacation coming home to your hometown, coming back home or doing a vacation somewhere else. And I just did not see myself doing that, or I did not want to do that. Um, so even if I did continue to work, I would have probably left it in a couple of years. So that's why I decided, why do that? Like I feel like I've learned everything that I could, or at least 80% of what I could. Um, Being there for extra 1 or 2 years would make sense, but it would only delay my bigger ambition in life or my bigger purpose in life. So, because I'm not 23 years old, I decided to take a step back and look towards bigger and better things. And I have to say that since I've taken that step, I have been exposed to, how as an engineer, you look at things in a very tunnel vision, especially coming for a kid from India or even better from Goa, like the smallest state of India. To have the vision to get into F1, you need to be very focused. And while that is really good, it leads you to tunnel vision because you're like, if I do this, I'll get this. That's the kind of game you're playing pretty much all the time. Because you don't have the ecosystem, because you don't have the opportunities, no F1 in schools, no FSA teams, nothing, right? So now it's come up, some versions of it has come up, but I was so tunnel vision that I never looked around of what's possible. And now that I've taken some time to look around of what's possible, it's given me a sense of how I could still be associated with the sport in multiple ways without having to sacrifice things which are important for me. F1 was a dream, but as you grow up, there are things which are also important to you. So I'm very happy for my inner child that I was able to achieve that dream. But yeah, I can at least look him in the eye and say that I tried and made it.
Of course you can. I mean, you worked for the top team that has won the championship and continues to win the championship now. But do you ever plan to go back to that world of motorsports and work in a team?
Well, I think if I do, I don't see myself as being employed by other people anymore. But I think if I do go back to F1, I would come. So the second thing that I love the most, or now the first thing that I love the most, is educating people, teaching are things which I absolutely enjoy. So I think if I do see myself back in the sport, I think I would come in the capacity of driving motorsport education, improving diversity, a less of an engineering role and a more of a role to make impact or to spread the awareness of the sport on a more global phase. When it comes to engineering, I think I would like to. I have a independent consultancy, so I would like to drive projects from there by myself and enjoy the working on those projects where you're not constrained on a lot of ideas like F1 constrains you these days. So yeah, I think I wouldn't come back as an aero engineer in F1 anymore. Also, I know what it takes. So after a year or two, I pretty much will start training my skill set. So if I want to, I should now, and not after 2 years, because then I know that I don't have a chance. Because I know how hard I work to even have a chance at it.
Right, right. But of course, I mean, usually I'm pretty sure there's a lot of competition under getting employed in a motorsport like F1. But how hard is it actually to get into F1 and pursue a career in Formula One?
I like to say this when people ask me this question. I like to say that it's never been easier. That's the way I answer this. And I'll tell you why. Back in 2021, there were just two teams that gave you a visa sponsorship. It was Red Bull and Mercedes. So here you are as not a British or a European citizen. Back when Brexit was a thing, Britain was part of the UK. Here is a situation where it's extremely hard for you to even get in. Like it's a dream to get in. But then B, it's even harder because you can pretty much apply to only two teams out of the 10 teams on the grid. And the two teams happen to be the top teams, the top two teams, not the bottom two teams. So, the top team is only interested in the top talent or people with experience and stuff like that. And kids in the UK and Europe do, their life leading to their graduation can already be counted as experience because they do a lot of trackside activities, they do a lot of marshalling activities, people who are interested in motorsport. So they have a feel for the entire show. But I think what is really important is now 9 out of the 10 teams actually sponsor visas. And what is even cooler is that not just F1, but motorsports as general has opened up for applications from all over the world. So if you are basically good enough right now from India, you can get selected. If you can get good enough from where you guys are sitting, you can get selected. Like the geolocation is no longer a limit. So now you just have to be good enough. Right. And that's why I say it's never been easier, because that no longer is a limitation. Like a kid in India doesn't have to spend 40 lakhs or 50 lakhs or 40,000 pounds, 50,000 pounds to complete an education in the UK, being his only source of being able to crack into motorsports for F1. And that is what we are fundamentally changing. We are starting Asia's first technical motorsport academy. And you'll hear a lot about us. It's called United Motorsports Academy. And we have three fundamental goals. We want to make global motorsport education at an affordable price, and world class. Like we are talking about people who even British universities call on a guest lecture basis, right?
Mm-hmm.
The second thing we want to do is we want to create not just a platform for education, but we want to be able to provide that education, but then provide hands-on experience. So we are collaborating with pretty much all the big industry players in motorsports in India, and the events that happen in India, such as drift events, rally events, autocross events, so that the students can learn and get hands-on exposure. And we will be training them on a dedicated summer internship in our workshop. And the last thing that we want to do is with this brand is we want to create a motorsport ecosystem. Like this entire market in India, okay, even in big established cities like in Italy or in UK, but the entire market in India, and I did not know about this unless I got exposed to it for the last 3 months. It's literally a fast and furious market. People make calls, like 6-7 calls to come to a venue, and people show up with crazy cars. Like this entire market is super unorganized. And what we want to do is give some order to chaos, where we provide students the opportunity to interact with these people who would be interested in developing technologies for their car. So creating that motorsport ecosystem where you are able to upskill yourself with the best knowledge, train yourself hands-on on the car, and then be able to be employed. So one of the cool things that we are doing, and sorry, we cannot get you into this program, but you guys should definitely think about it, is we are doing in October India's first race engineering workshop, in which we are calling Rex Keen from UK, who's had 20 plus years of experience in the race engineering, and doing a 4-day workshop with them. And here's the cool part, okay? 24 students out of those 200 students who will do the workshop will get a fully funded opportunity to work with an Indian F4 team for an entire season. So you're doing 5 races in India, right? 2 in Chennai, 2 in Delhi, and 1 in Hyderabad. In an FIA grade competition, fully funded as assistants to race engineers and race mechanics,
That's amazing. That's
right? And out of those 24 students, then 4 students will be employed the next year as junior race assistants or junior race engineers.
that's
And
absolutely wonderful. Yes.
yeah, and something like this doesn't even exist out there. And that's what we want to showcase. Like we could create something that's not even available abroad. Like world-class education, world-class opportunities, and employment. Like people can actually earn a living from this. And a shout to you is basically that we are also going to be sponsoring women in this. So out of those 24, 18 are going to be male and 6 are going to be female, and one of them, at least maybe 2 of them, are going to be fully sponsored. So we are having that aspect of introducing women in engineering as well into our program. Yeah. So yeah, this is just the thing that I am up to right now, which I feel, which I believe can, like I always say to my partner that if I, in after 3 years, if I can send 5 students from India directly to F1 without having to spend 50,000 pounds on an education, I think that is goal achieved.
100% goal achieved. I mean, I feel like through your program, definitely students coming from smaller cities and states that don't have a lot of exposure will gain the exposure, and they have a pathway similar for us as F1 in schools gives us a pathway to directly to F1. I definitely think your initiative will give them exposure that they need. And that's absolutely, absolutely great. And I wish you all the best for that as well. But also, coming back to you being in one of the top teams, Red Bull has now been dominating since the past 3 years. So how do you think Red Bull has stayed ahead in terms of technology and engineering from the rest?
2 aspects to it. One is giving clarity of information to everybody, like the entire team. Um, the information through the entire team is processed quite well. Like what the driver says, the engineer knows, but not just the race engineer, but also an intern sitting at the factory knows what is the main limitation of the driver. So everybody is aligned towards making the car faster, and managers don't need to say that this is what we need. Everybody knows because everyone is smart enough to figure out that what we need to do to make the car faster. And everybody comes up with ideas. If I'm a junior engineer and I'm hearing what Max is saying or what Adrian is saying as the main limitation of the car, then I'm thinking of ideas to then pitch it to my manager when I come in on a Monday. So everybody just lands up working cohesively towards solving the problem. And I do think that when they focus a lot on verification and validation of data and their tools so that they can rely on their tools well. There's a lot of attention given to making sure that there is good validation towards CFD, towards the structure analysis, towards a lot of things. And I think that is where, as a team, they do really well because they're very dynamic and they're constantly improving. Um, and before the cost cap, Red Bull was the kind of team that they wouldn't come up with a aero package. They would just come up with aero updates. So they would just come up. If you found a part that would improve the performance, you put it on the car the next race. You don't wait to create a package 6 days down the line, so that you think that it would work. Rather, you just keep on adding parts. But now, obviously, with the cost cap, everybody has to be a bit more organized in how they go about things.
Right, very right. Completely makes sense. And also, just as like an ending question, I just want to ask, since you also joined in 2021, what are your opinions on the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix?
Very interesting question. I think I think without creating controversy, because it's already created a lot of controversy. I think I kind of these are Toto Wolff's words, so I think I kind of agree with that. I think Lewis deserved to win the champion the race, but Max deserved to win the championship. And of course, like you say, you're contradicting yourself because if Lewis had won, then he wins the championship. But what I mean by this is, yes, it's a cutthroat competition, and that was Lewis Hamilton probably at his peak, right? And here's a kid, and Lewis is a machine, like just a constantly good output. It's just incredibly hard to beat. And one of the reasons Sebastian Vettel and Ferrari could never beat him was not because they were not good enough, was simply because they were not good enough consistently over an entire season to beat somebody of the likes of Mercedes and Hamilton put together.
Right.
So I feel Max deserved to be the champion simply because Max was able to pull that consistency out um, every race and go head to head with somebody of Hamilton's stature. So in that sense, it was his first championship. You know, he could have easily lost it when things got hard, which he did sometimes. He did send one or two very brave down the inside ones. But yeah, I think Lewis deserved to win the race, but Max deserved to win the championship.
You know what? Yes, yes. I completely agree with that because, well, yes, Max was the only one who could put up an actual real fight to Lewis Hamilton and his dominant nature uh, since a very few years. And yeah, I completely agree with that. But also, thank you so much for joining us today on this podcast. I had so much fun and I learned so much.
I enjoyed being on this. Thank you for having me and all the best for your competition. Do well and make sure you have a lot of fun and you learn along the way and make some friends along the way. So then you can call them and say, I'm coming abroad, guys. Vacation. So yeah, make some good friends and click some nice photos with some big celebrities and have a good one.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. We definitely will. And this was, of course, the last episode of SubSecond. We'll see you for the next season. Bye bye.